I need to clarify something before the historians twist my story into some tragic epic. I did not walk willingly into my fate. No. At age 15, I was shoved, politely, of course, because royal etiquette matters when you're sacrificing your child, into a carriage and sent across the border like a highly decorative goat. My parents called it peace. I called it expensive kidnapping. But no, technically, I was a hostage prince, a symbol of trust, a bridge between nations. Insert 10 more poetic phrases used to distract from the fact that everyone just wanted to avoid a war and decided, throw the Omega child at them. Good luck, sweetheart. Brilliant diplomacy. The moment I arrived in Ren's kingdom, I was greeted by Prince Ren himself. Tall, golden-haired, beautiful in a way that made me think angels might feel insecure standing next to him. And he smiled at me like I was the only person in the world. A warm, soft, gentle smile. The kind of smile that made young, idiot me blush and think, oh, maybe this won't be so bad. He knelt, dramatic much, and reached out to me like I was something fragile. Don't be afraid, Charlie, he'd murmured on that first day. I'll protect you. Protect me. From what? Apparently from the remote possibility that I might ever know peace or dignity again. But at the time, I didn't know any better. So my tiny teenage Omega brain went, oh wow, he's so kind. Looking back? Yeah. He smiled like a hero in a romance novel. Spoiler, turns out it was the villain edition. But in that first week, he was perfect. He draped cloaks over my shoulders when I was cold, walked with me through the gardens, asked what foods I liked, then ordered the kitchen to make them all. The staff whispered about how Prince Ren had never shown interest in anyone before. And suddenly he was leaning down to tuck a stray strand of my hair behind my ear. I should have known right then. Any alpha that beautiful and that charming, statistically suspicious. But I was 15, terrified, lonely, and apparently susceptible to blonde men who give compliments. So naturally, I fell for him a little. Okay. A lot. Ren didn't just treat me kindly. He showered me with attention. Silk clothes, gold bracelets, pastries so good they could bribe the gods. He'd take my hand when walking through the palace halls, smiling like he was proud of me, like I was his chosen treasure. I was naive enough to let that warmth sink in, to let myself believe, maybe he likes me, maybe I'm safe, maybe this whole hostage situation will turn into something sweet. You know, typical Omega delusions. And for a little while, it felt real. One night during a banquet, Ren leaned close enough for his breath to brush my ear. You're prettier than anyone else here, he whispered. I nearly combusted on the spot. But affection has a dark twin. I noticed small things first, very small. A servant spoke too cheerfully to me. Ren's hand tightened on my waist. I spent too long in the gardens alone. Ren asked why I needed so much space. I mentioned missing my younger brother. Ren's expression froze. You don't need anyone else, Charlie, he'd said, with a soft smile that didn't reach his eyes. You have me. Cute, right? Except no. Because slowly, so slowly I didn't realize it at first, my freedom evaporated. The staff were told not to approach me without permission. Ren insisted I dine beside him every night. He monitored where I went, who I spoke to, what books I read. Any attempt at independence was met with, Charlie, why are you avoiding me? Charlie, you know I only want what's best for you. Charlie, Omegas can get hurt if they aren't careful. As if being cautious ever saved anyone from heartbreak. I joked my way through most of it, of course. I'd smile and quip things like, oh no, you caught me trying to escape socializing. How will I survive? But inside, a cold knot was forming. Fear, ownership, realization. Ren wasn't protecting me. Ren was keeping me. 6 months in, something changed. I don't mean gradual change. I mean slap in the face, whiplash, speed change. One day, Ren was smiling at me across the dining table, telling me my voice sounded cute when I was annoyed. The next day, he didn't show up for breakfast, or lunch, or dinner. At first, I thought, he must be busy. By the third day, I thought, did I do something wrong? By the seventh day, I thought, cool, I'm being abandoned. Love that for me. Then it got worse. Once I saw Ren in the hallway. He walked right past me like I was a decorative vase he didn't order and wanted to return. No glance, no nod, not even a polite smile. Just nothing. It felt like someone had dropped a bucket of ice water down my spine. I tried to confront him, gently, carefully, like omegas are trained to do. Ren, did I upset you? He stared at me, blankly, then shrugged. You're imagining things. That night, lying awake in my too large, too cold princely bed, I realized the truth. His affection wasn't affection. It was entertainment. Something to pass the time. And I had gotten boring, but I was not prepared for how cruel boredom could become. Because 2 weeks later, Ren walked into my quarters, unannounced, uninvited, and not alone. He had another omega pressed against him, giggling, clinging, lipstick smudged at the corner of his mouth. Ren didn't even look embarrassed. He laughed. The other omega kissed his jaw and Ren said loudly, I hope you don't mind, Charlie. He's much less complicated than you. The omega giggled harder. I felt something crack inside me, something deep, something fragile. But I still managed to say with my finest sarcastic composure, apparently loyalty is seasonal now. Ren smirked. I never promised you loyalty. Then he kissed the other omega deeper, in the doorway. So close I could smell their mixed scents. I turned my face away so I wouldn't cry in front of them. The door shut behind them like the final note of a song I should never have danced to. That night, I realized something simple, painful, and impossible to ignore. I was still a hostage, just not politically, emotionally. I had been foolish enough to love a man who saw me as a toy, a decoration, a possession, and Ren had already moved on. Let me tell you something about heartbreak. It doesn't arrive quietly. It walks into your room in broad daylight with a grin, an ego the size of a palace, and an omega wrapped around its arm. In my particular case, heartbreak had a name. Ren Crown Prince, national treasure, war general, professional heart shatterer. One afternoon, I was reorganizing my books, which is code for pretending to be productive so I don't spiral, when my door slammed open. Well, correction. Ren slammed my door open, and he wasn't alone. There was another omega with him, draped across his chest like a decorative scarf. Soft curls, glittery eyes, giggles so sweet they could cause tooth decay. Ren held him like he was carrying gold. I just stood there, mid-shelf, mid-mental stability. Ren didn't even have the decency to look guilty. He smirked, then leaned down and kissed the omega. Not a polite kiss, a full, deep, possessive kiss designed for an audience, me. When they finally separated, thankfully before I projectile vomited, Ren turned to me and said it. Why would I touch something so plain when I can have this? Plain. Me. Charlie. The hostage prince who had been stuck with him for years. Plain. The omega giggled and hid his face in Ren's chest like I was some tragic storybook villain, not the one being emotionally stabbed. Ren's hand stroked his hair. I clutched the book I was holding and resisted the urge to throw it. Royal etiquette said no. My bruised heart said yes. So instead, I went with my strength. Sarcasm. Sure, Your Highness, enjoy your buffet. I'll just stand here like a sad decorative plant. The omega snorted. Ren smiled at him, not me. Then they left. Door still open, dignity on the floor, book still in my hand like a useless weapon. I wanted to scream, or cry, or dramatically fling myself off a balcony, but I wasn't giving Ren that satisfaction. Instead, I whispered to myself, great, fantastic, love that for me. Because apparently being a hostage wasn't humiliating enough. I had to be humiliated in high definition too. Ren's cheating wasn't a one-time performance. Oh no, that man had range. He turned it into a hobby, a sport. A public festival event. Watch the Crown Prince emotionally destroy the hostage Omega. Free entry. He never said that out loud, but the palace certainly acted like it. Exhibit A, the Summer Festival. Ren insisted I accompany him. I sat beside him on a raised platform in the courtyard, technically an honored guest. Actually, a decorative accessory, a flower vase with limbs. Nobles swarmed around Ren like moths around a flame, except flames are warm, and Ren was the emotional equivalent of an ice shard. He flirted openly with the nobles, laughed with them, brushed his hand against their arms, shoulders, hair, everywhere except me. One noble alpha even said, loud enough to reach all the corners of my fragile soul, "The hostage prince is pathetic. Can't even keep the prince's attention." Ren didn't defend me. He didn't even blink. He kept flirting. I swallowed the burn in my chest and smiled like an idiot. "It's fine. We're fine. I'm fine." I lied to myself with confidence. Exhibit B, Banquet of Betrayal. One night, Ren arrived with yet another Omega on his arm. He didn't just flirt this time. He marked them, in the middle of the dance floor, at a royal banquet, with everyone watching, and the scent hit me like a blade, sharp, public, permanent. My jaw went slack, my heart left my body, packed its bags, and moved to another kingdom. Ren glanced at me once, not apologetically, not regretfully, amused, coldly amused, like he enjoyed watching me break. And for the record, wow, nothing like being emotionally stabbed before dessert. My stomach churned, my fingers trembled on my dinner spoon. I wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. Instead, I took a sip of wine. Too big a sip. Then I whispered, "Delicious. Can't taste anything. My insides are dead." After the event, I returned to my empty quarters and stared at the ceiling. I wasn't angry that he didn't love me. I was angry because I had let myself hope. Ren wasn't just cruel. He was consistent. And worse, everyone expected me to endure it, because Omegas endure, political pawns endure, hostage princes endure. But me? I was starting to crack. Let me explain the rules of hostage service. I was required to stay in Ren's kingdom until I turned 20 as part of the treaty. 5 years. 5 long years. And tomorrow? Tomorrow was my 20th birthday. Meaning, drumroll please. I could finally go home, if I wanted, if I survived the emotional erosion, if Ren didn't crush the last of my spirit by sunrise. And knowing him, he probably had it scheduled on his calendar. So I planned quietly, act slowly, slip out gracefully, avoid dramatic confrontation, preserve dignity, whatever remains of it. I was feeling almost hopeful, dangerous emotion, when Ren walked into my path again. He looked at me with that bored expression, like I was a tool he used once and forgot to return. "What?" he drawled. "I turn 20 tomorrow," I said, "so I can go home." Ren stared at me, then laughed. Laughed. "Don't get excited," he said. "You'll crawl back eventually. You always do." "Excuse me? Crawl? Crawl?" I blinked at him slowly. "Right. Of course. I forgot my knees come with wheels." He rolled his eyes and walked away. Did he think I stayed because I wanted him? Because I had nowhere else to go? Because I was too attached to leave? Unbelievable. Delusional. Royal-level narcissism. Because here's the thing Ren never understood. I might be an Omega. I might be sarcastic, dramatic, emotionally damaged, and trash at judging men. But I was still a prince. And once a prince decides to leave, he leaves. So that night, I made my decision. I was going home. Not because Ren threw me away, but because I finally realized I deserved more than scraps. The night before my 20th birthday should have been peaceful, quiet, reflective, full of deep thoughts like, wow, I survived being emotionally terrorized for 5 years. Good job, me. Instead, I found myself standing in Ren's private sitting room, the same golden, extravagant chamber where he used to whisper sweet things to me, and asking the dumbest question I've ever asked in my life. A question I promised I wouldn't ask. A question any sensible person would have swallowed, buried, cemented, and tossed into the ocean. And yet, Ren, I said quietly, did you ever love me? The room went still. Ren turned to me with that familiar expression, the one that said he wasn't annoyed enough to yell but not amused enough to pretend he had a soul. His hand lifted his goblet lazily, swirling the wine inside like he was stirring disappointment. He walked toward me slowly. For a breath, a tiny, foolish breath, I let myself hope he'd say something soft, something almost kind, something I could pretend mattered. Instead, he smirked. Not a charming smirk, a condescending smirk, the "I'm about to ruin your life again" version. Then he lifted the goblet higher and splashed the water straight into my face. It hit with a cold slap, soaking my hair, dripping down my chin, sliding into my collar. Ren drawled, "Love? Stop embarrassing yourself." My heart did that painful crunching thing, the one where it feels like it's folding in on itself. But I'm Charlie. I cope through sarcasm and delusion, so I blinked the water out of my eyes and replied, "Thanks. I needed a bath anyway." He didn't laugh. Of course he didn't. Ren only laughed when someone else was suffering in high definition. He tossed the empty goblet aside like the moment bored him. "Go sleep, Charlie," he said. Like I was a servant, like I was a nuisance, like I was nothing. And maybe I wasn't expecting love, but the sheer dismissal stung more than any rejection ever could. I left the room, drenched, humiliated, and something inside me whispered, "This is it. Leave, now." Tomorrow was my 20th birthday, and the treaty's chains would break at midnight. For the first time in 5 years, I could go home. The next morning, with dignity slightly wrinkled but intact, I went to the Emperor. Not Ren's father, thank the stars. Ren's kingdom wasn't cursed enough to have created 2 of him, but their distant emperor who actually had power. I entered the grand hall with my spine straight, clothes neat, hair only mildly humid from last night's accidental waterboarding. The emperor sat on his throne, stern and unreadable. I bowed. "Your Majesty, as the treaty states, tomorrow, when I turn 20, I request permission to return home." He studied me. He didn't smile, but his eyes softened slightly, like he suspected something was wrong. Before he could answer, the doors slammed open, because of course they did. Ren marched in with all the dramatic flair of a man who believes the world revolves around him. His entourage followed like trained parrots. Ren crossed the hall, voice loud and dripping with mockery. "Oh, please," he said. "He's doing this for attention." The nobles snickered. Ren waved a hand dismissively. "He'll be back crying in a week." The hall erupted into polite, poisonous laughter. No one noticed the way my hands clenched, or how my throat tightened, or how the humiliation built, higher and higher like a wave waiting to crash. Ren smirked at me, like he'd already won, like I was a child throwing a tantrum. Something inside me snapped. Not loudly, not visibly, but cleanly. I lifted my chin, smiled sweetly, and replied, "Well, Prince Ren, try not to miss me too much. I know it'll be hard." The laughter cut abruptly. Ren's eyes narrowed, not with anger, but with confusion, like he had never considered a world in which I didn't orbit around him. The Emperor raised a hand, silencing the room. "Prince Ren," he said calmly, "the treaty is clear. When Prince Charlie turns 20, he may return home if he wishes." Ren scoffed loudly, but the Emperor ignored him. "Prepare for departure," the Emperor instructed. "Your carriage will be ready at dawn." I bowed again. But this time, when I lifted my head, I didn't look at Ren. I didn't need to. I had already let him go, and that, I think, hurt him more than any insult. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was sad, though grief definitely poked my ribs a few times, but because I was packing. Alone. Quietly. Carefully. My clothes. My herbs. A few books Ren hadn't bothered to steal from me. A ring my mother gave me. A small carved wooden wolf from my younger brother. I didn't leave a note. Not out of pettiness, because I didn't owe Ren anything anymore. Not explanations, not farewells, not pain. When the sky began to lighten with hints of pink and gold, I slipped out of the palace. No escort, no guards, no goodbyes, just me. A 20-year-old Omega with a stitched-together heart and a bag heavier than my emotional baggage. The courtyard was empty except for a carriage waiting. Plain, understated, but sturdy. A servant bowed to me. "Your carriage, Prince Charlie." Prince. I'd forgotten what that sounded like when it wasn't dripping with mockery. I stepped inside. The door shut softly, and as the horses began to move, I felt something tug behind my ribs. Pain, yes, but also relief. Freedom. Real, fragile freedom. Not the kind Ren pretended to give me. The palace disappeared behind the morning fog. Ren's last words echoed in my ears. "You'll crawl back eventually." Right. Sure. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and sighed. Happy birthday to me, celebrating by escaping emotional prison. I didn't know what waited for me at home. I didn't know if my kingdom still wanted me. I didn't know if they remembered me. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going back. Not to Ren. Not to humiliation. Not to a kingdom that saw me as entertainment. I was done kneeling. Done begging for scraps. From now on, I would choose myself, and maybe, just maybe, someone would choose me too. Returning home after 5 years should have been dramatic. Trumpets, flower petals, people crying tears of joy. A banner saying, "Welcome back, Charlie. Sorry we sent you to emotional hell." Instead, my grand entrance consisted of a dusty carriage, a stiff backache, a headache shaped like Prince Ren's ego. The carriage rolled through the Capitol gates and heads turned. Not in excitement, not in relief. More like, "Oh gods, what happened to him?" Whispers spread like wildfire. "Is that Prince Charlie? He looks thin." No, not thin. Drained. Used. Yes, that's the word. Used. Nothing makes you feel loved like hearing your kingdom whisper you look used before breakfast. I kept my face neutral, which is code for emotionally dead but pretending to be mysterious. Honestly, what was I supposed to do? Wave? Blow kisses? Announce I was alive and traumatized? No thanks. So I just stared ahead, posture perfect because trauma apparently gives you excellent spine control. The carriage finally stopped at the palace steps, my old home, which now felt like a stranger's house wearing familiar clothes. The courtyard was lined with guards and officials, all stiff and formal, like they didn't know whether to bow or throw holy water on me to check if I was a ghost. Spoiler, I was not a ghost. Just an Omega with 5 years' worth of emotional baggage and a desire to throw Ren off a cliff using only my mind. I stepped out of the carriage slowly, ignoring every whisper. No one moved, no one greeted me. This kingdom sent me away at 15, and now I had returned. Different. Hollow. I walked forward, numbness wrapped around me like a cloak. Someone murmured, "He walks like he's broken." Good observation. Gold star. But I didn't react, couldn't, because reacting required energy, and mine had been consumed by Ren, Ren's games, Ren's other Omegas, and Ren's love for public humiliation. So I kept my eyes down, face emotionless, a ghost returning to his grave. Then I stopped walking. Because standing at the end of the courtyard, wearing silver armor that honestly had no right to look that good, was Adrien. Adrien, my childhood friend, my once favorite alpha, the boy who used to sneak pastries into my room when I failed etiquette lessons. Except he wasn't a boy anymore. He'd grown into, well, a tall, broad-shouldered, stupidly handsome general with hair darker than midnight and eyes that could probably kill someone with tenderness alone. He stepped forward slowly, and then he knelt, in front of everyone, in front of me, head bowed, fist over his heart. "Welcome home, Charlie," he said softly, voice deep enough to reset my internal organs. "Here, you bow to no one." The courtyard inhaled sharply. I, meanwhile, forgot how to breathe entirely. Adrien, general of the kingdom, my protector from childhood, kneeling, to me. I stared at him, utterly overwhelmed. My heart, which had been dry and cracked like an abandoned field, suddenly felt something painfully warm. Alien. Dangerous. Probably hope. Gross. I swallowed and blurted the first thing my sarcastic brain generated. Please don't kneel. My heart is weak and fragile. A few officials choked on air. One guard coughed violently. Someone whispered, "He's still sarcastic, thank the gods." Adrien looked up, and when his eyes met mine, soft, warm, unshakably gentle, I nearly disintegrated. He rose slowly, towering over me but somehow making me feel safe, not trapped, not observed, not owned. Safe. "Charlie," he whispered, "you're home." I almost cried right there, but I heroically swallowed the emotion because public crying requires a level of vulnerability I was not prepared to commit to. Instead, I cleared my throat and said, "Hi, yes, I live here again." Surprise. Adrien smiled, a real smile, a soft smile. It was unfair how pretty that smile was. Adrien walked beside me as we headed into the palace. He didn't touch me, didn't dare to, but he stayed close enough that I could feel his warmth. Honestly, it felt like standing next to a fireplace after 5 winters of cold. Inside the halls, away from prying eyes, Adrien finally spoke. "Charlie, may I?" His voice was low, careful, asking permission for something he wasn't even doing yet. I blinked at him. "May you what?" "Look at you. Properly." Oh, fantastic. Time to embarrass myself. But I nodded. He gently, so gently, tilted my chin up with 2 fingers. His eyes swept over my face, slow and controlled, but I saw it. The flicker of anger, the way his jaw clenched, the darkness in his gaze when he saw the faint marks Ren's rough grabs had left behind. Adrien inhaled sharply. "Charlie," he murmured, voice trembling slightly. "Who did this to you?" I snorted. Gravity, life, bad decisions. His eyes softened, but the anger didn't disappear. "Your scent," he whispered. "It's so faint. Someone's been suppressing it too long." Yes, because Ren didn't like omegas smelling too much like omegas when they weren't convenient. But I wasn't about to explain that right now. So I shrugged. "It's called dignity withdrawal, side effect of humiliation." "Charlie," Adrien said again, but this time his voice dropped, deep, warm, protective in a way that made something inside my chest curl up and cry. "No one will hurt you here," he said, "not even by accident." My throat tightened. My instinct screamed to trust him. My trauma screamed to run. My sarcasm, as always, saved the day. "Relax, I'm not going to cry in your coat." "Probably." Adrien huffed a soft laugh, the kind that made my stomach flip uncomfortably. He stepped back just enough to give me space, but not far enough for me to feel alone. "You're safe now," he repeated softly. Truly. Safe. I didn't know what that meant anymore, but standing beside Adrien, it felt like maybe I could learn. The first night back, I expected to be thrown into some dusty spare room with tragic curtains and suspicious drafts. You know, "Welcome home, Charlie. Enjoy your trauma corner." Instead, Adrien personally escorted me to a chamber that looked like it belonged to someone important. Like royalty important. Respected important. Not someone who got dumped in public 8 times important. The doors opened, and I blinked at the sight. A large canopied bed layered with thick blankets, velvet curtains, a hearth burning warmly, soft rugs. A table with fresh fruit, pastries, a pitcher of water, and, of course, tea, because apparently Adrien remembers every one of my preferences. And then, a stack of new clothes folded neatly. Loose robes, soft shirts, warm outerwear. Clothes that were meant for comfort, not display. I stared, then stared harder. Then said, "Are you sure this room is meant for me? You know, the politically used, recently abandoned, emotionally bankrupt hostage prince?" Adrien didn't even blink. You deserve comfort, not tolerance, he said softly. Sir, that is illegal. My heart is fragile and cannot handle poetic lines before dinner. Adrien gestured toward the adjoining bathing room. Steam drifted through a partially open door. You have a warm bath prepared, he added, with herbs to help your muscles relax. My mind, say thank you like a normal human. My mouth, great, now I have no excuse to be dramatic. Adrien's lips curved into the gentlest smile known to mankind. I'm sure you'll find new excuses, he murmured. I scowled, weakly. Inside, something fluttered, dangerously. I stepped into the room trying not to look impressed. Spoiler, I failed. Adrien glanced around once more, then back at me. If anything is missing, he said, anything at all, call for me. Romantic menace, trying to kill me with kindness. I raised an eyebrow. You say that like you expect me to need you. His expression softened. I do. Oh! Emotion attempted to leak out of my eyes, but I slammed the door shut before the tears could escape. Okay, I croaked. Good talk. Goodbye. I practically shoved myself into the bathing room and closed the door, sliding down it dramatically. Gods. If Ren's cruelty carved me hollow, Adrien's gentleness was filling me too fast. I didn't know which was scarier. Over the next week, Adrien made a dangerous habit of inviting me to meals. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, midday tea, evening tea, post-evening tea. Basically, the man was feeding me with the dedication of a mother bird, except significantly more handsome and with more emotional damage. Meal 1, Day 3. Adrien. How is your room? Are you sleeping well? Me, sipping soup. I no longer feel like a ghost, so that's a plus. Meal 2, Day 4. Adrien. If you need more blankets, I can have some delivered. Me. Any more blankets and I'll be indistinguishable from a pastry. Meal 3, Day 5. Adrien. You seem tired today. Me. I tried to read a book and my brain said no. And the man, laughed. Actual laughter. Deep, warm, soft laughter that made my stomach clench unpleasantly in a way that probably meant attraction or indigestion. But here's the dangerous part. He listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't dismiss. He didn't tell me what I should feel. He simply watched me with those warm eyes that made me feel like I wasn't a burden, which was new, terrifyingly new. One evening, while sharing dessert, Adrien reached out and brushed a crumb off my cheek. I froze. He immediately pulled his hand back. May I? He asked gently. His voice was soft enough to make a stone blush. Yeah, I said, trying not to melt. He brushed it again, slower this time. My heart made an embarrassingly loud thump. I scowled to cover it. Don't baby me. I'm not. His voice dropped, warm as sunlight. I'm cherishing you. Cherishing. Sir, that word is illegal. Romantic crime detected. I choked on air. Full on air. My face heated so fast I whacked my knee on the table trying to escape his gaze. He reached out to steady me, hand warm on my arm. Careful. Stop, I squeaked. I can't handle... I gestured vaguely at him. Attractive kindness. He smiled again. And I nearly died. I didn't want to like him. I didn't want to feel anything that looked like hope. Hope had been weaponized against me once already. But Adrien wasn't Ren. He wasn't cold cruelty disguised as affection. He was warmth disguised as patience, and it was working. Scarily well. A week after my return, the royal historian personally requested to see me, which was suspicious because historians don't request things unless there are ancient curses, inconvenient prophecies, or scandalous family secrets involved. I followed the old man into his dusty library. Scrolls, books, ink stains everywhere. It smelled like knowledge and old guilt. Prince Charlie, he said gravely, there is something you should know. My soul sighed. Of course there is. Adrien stood near the door, silent but watchful, as if prepared to catch me if the knowledge physically knocked me over. Which it might. The historian unrolled a sealed scroll. "This," he said, "is an ancient treaty between our kingdom and yours." I blinked. "Isn't this the part where someone tells me I'm cursed or adopted?" "No," he replied. "It states that you and General Adrien were originally intended to bond when you came of age." Silence. A beat. Another beat. My jaw unhinged. "I'm sorry, what?" The historian continued, oblivious to my internal meltdown. "Your birth aligned with an old prophecy. 2 children, one Omega, one Alpha, born under the same comet, destined to unify the kingdoms." My brain short-circuited. The historian nodded solemnly. "The scroll named you and Adrien." I stared at Adrien. Adrien stared at me. Adrien's ears turned pink. I turned into a statue. The historian went on, "But before the treaty could be enacted, Ren's kingdom intercepted negotiations. They demanded you as a hostage instead, knowing it would break the prophecy and destabilize both kingdoms." I raised a hand like a student asking a question in class. "So basically," I deadpanned, "I got kidnapped by destiny and politics." "Yes," the historian confirmed. I groaned loudly and dramatically. "Perfect. Amazing. Love that for me." Adrien stepped closer, his expression impossibly gentle. "Charlie," he said quietly, "I didn't know. I swear to you, I never expected—" I waved my hand. "Relax, General Tall and Handsome. I don't think you orchestrated my tragic life arc." He blinked, then smiled. Soft, slow, devastating. His voice dipped to something warm enough to melt glaciers. "You were always meant to stand beside me. No, 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 no. That line should be illegal." I felt my face heat. My knees considered giving up on life and collapsing entirely. I cleared my throat, flustered. "Okay, no more romantic sentences today, doctor's orders." Adrien chuckled. "I'll try." "You won't," I mumbled. "No," he admitted softly. "Probably not." And for the first time since leaving Ren's kingdom, I didn't feel hollow. I felt found. I always imagined that if Ren ever came back into my life, I'd be prepared, emotionally armored, spiritually stable, mentally fortified. Instead, I was sitting in the courtyard, peacefully sipping tea like a fragile houseplant recovering from trauma. And then, the palace gates exploded open. Ren stormed in with a full squad of soldiers behind him, cloak snapping dramatically, not because of wind, but because Ren himself generates unnecessary drama. His eyes locked onto me with a feral intensity that made my stomach drop. "There you are," he snarled. "You think you can leave me? You're mine." His soldiers spread out like he owned the place. I didn't stand, didn't flinch, didn't even set down my tea. Instead, I snorted. "Funny," I said. "You never liked claiming me when it actually mattered." A few guards gasped. One soldier choked on his own spit. Good. Ren looked like he wanted to bite someone, preferably me, in a bad way. Before he could explode, a shadow stepped between us. Adrien, my alpha general, my emotionally dangerous comfort provider, my personal human shield with a jawline capable of starting diplomatic conflicts. He pulled me behind him, voice calm but lethal. "He is not yours. He never was." Ren's eyes narrowed. Well, the country alpha speaks." Adrien didn't rise to the insult. He simply tilted his head, gaze glacial. "Touch him and I'll end your dynasty." Silence dropped like a guillotine. Ren stepped forward, bristling with dominance. Adrien didn't move an inch, and I, standing behind Adrien, whispered loudly, "Please don't have an alpha staring contest. My heart can only handle so much testosterone." Neither of them reacted, which was rude, honestly. But before I could complain, Ren spoke again. His voice was velvet-wrapped poison. "If you want him so badly, then prove you can keep him." And that was when things got stupid. Ren smirked like he'd just invented evil. There is a flower, he said, that blooms only once every century. Tonight, under the full moon, in the foggy forest. I frowned. Is this a poem? A threat? A scavenger hunt? Ren ignored me, of course. It is a royal symbol, he continued. Whoever retrieves it proves their worth. Adrien simply said, I'll go. I spun on him. Excuse me? No, absolutely not. That flower is in the foggy forest. That place is basically a nature-filled death trap with extra ghosts. Ren smirked wider. Yes, let the brave general fetch it. If he fails, the Omega returns to me. My blood froze. Ren, I snapped, I would rather marry a rock. Still a better personality than you, he shot back. Adrien's hand brushed mine, just the lightest touch. Charlie, he said softly, I'm not losing to him. My heart flipped, did a somersault, and filed a lawsuit. Fine, I grumbled, but if you die, I'll kill you. He laughed under his breath. The foggy forest. We reached the cliffs overlooking the fog-drenched valley. Moonlight filtered through the mist, illuminating strange glowing plants. And there, at the very edge of the cliff, was the flower. White, luminous, perfect. Adrien stepped forward. I grabbed his sleeve. Careful. I have a horrible feeling and I'd like to keep you alive, preferably long-term. He squeezed my hand. I'll be fine. Stay here, please. I hated the word please. It made me listen. He walked forward. The wind howled. The mist curled around his boots. Adrien reached out. And then the ground collapsed. A hidden trap. Of course. Adrien! I screamed as he disappeared over the edge. My legs moved before my brain did. I lunged forward, skidding onto the cliff's edge. Adrien lay on a rocky ledge below, unconscious, blood dripping down his temple. I dropped down beside him, shaking his shoulders. Adrien, hey, no sleeping, wake up. You're too handsome to die. He didn't move. Panic ripped through my chest, tearing something deep and buried, and then it happened. The healing. A golden glow burst from my palms. It wasn't warm, it was scorching, overwhelming, alive. The light spread from my hands to Adrien's body, wrapping him like a cocoon. My chest ached, my eyes stung. Tears streamed down my face. Please, I whispered. Please wake up. I can't lose you too. The golden aura brightened. Blinding, beautiful, terrifying. And then, Adrien gasped. His eyes fluttered open. Charlie, he murmured, voice faint. Why are you glowing? I choked on laughter and tears. Because apparently I'm magical and emotionally unstable. He sat up slowly and cupped my cheek with trembling fingers. You saved me, he whispered. I wasn't going to let you die, I muttered. You owe me emotional support until I'm 80. He smiled, soft, warm, dangerously tender. He picked the flower, now within reach, and held it out to me. For you. I blinked. Why? Because, Adrien said quietly, I love you. Time froze. My heart malfunctioned. The wind forgot to blow. What? I squeaked. But before he could repeat it, because my soul might have left my body, Ren's voice echoed across the cliffs. Oh, please, Ren barked, stepping out of the shadows. Spare me the tragic romance. I groaned. Perfect. Evil and jealousy arrived together. Ren's eyes burned with fury. This isn't over! Back at the courtyard, Ren snapped. He lunged at me, hand reaching for my neck, aiming to mark me in front of everyone. A dirty, desperate move. I stumbled back, heart racing. Seriously? I snapped. On my birthday week? Get a hobby! Before Ren could touch me, Adrien's pheromones exploded outward, sharp, dominant, overwhelming. The air crackled with alpha pressure. Adrien stepped between us, eyes blazing. Charlie, he murmured without looking back. Look at me. You're safe. I looked, and the world steadied. Ren bared his teeth. This Omega is mine. No, a new voice cut in. He isn't. The Emperor stepped forward, expression thunderous. Ren, he said, if you do not leave immediately, this will become a war between our countries. Is your father prepared for that responsibility? Ren froze. His soldiers shifted uneasily. The Emperor continued, voice cold as steel. Withdraw, now. Ren's jaw clenched hard enough to crack. This isn't finished, he spat. Then he turned, cloak snapping, and stormed out of the courtyard. I exhaled shakily. Adrien turned to me, gaze softening instantly. You're safe now, he murmured again. And for the first time, I believed him. After Ren was forced out of the kingdom, deliciously satisfying moment 1010 would watch again, the palace finally went quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet where emotions you've been avoiding suddenly leap out and punch you in the face. I sat alone in my chambers, curled on the window seat, picking at a loose thread in my blanket. The moonlight spilled across the room like someone was trying to make my breakdown aesthetically pleasing. Then, soft footsteps behind me. I didn't have to turn. Only one person walked like that. Only one person radiated gentleness thick enough to cause emotional allergies. Charlie, Adrien whispered, may I come closer? I barked a laugh. You just fought a prince for me. I think you're allowed to stand in the same room. He approached carefully, as if I might bolt. Honestly, fair. He sat beside me but not touching, letting me choose the distance. Why was that so romantic? Why did respecting boundaries suddenly feel sexier than muscles? I swallowed hard. Adrien watched me quietly until the silence stretched too long, pressing on my chest until it cracked something open. My voice came out small, horrifying. I was allergic to smallness. Adrien, I'm not pure. His expression shifted, sharp, heartbroken. But I kept going, the words ripping free one by one. I'm not whole. I'm not untouched or naive or innocent. I'm not... Adrien gently reached out and touched my cheek, stopping the spiral. Charlie, he whispered. You're Charlie. That's all I ever wanted. My breath froze in my throat. He said it like a vow, like a truth carved into stone, like he saw every broken piece of me, and still wanted to hold them. My eyes stung, which was unacceptable. No crying, not in front of pretty general with emotional depth. Don't, my voice cracked. Don't say romantic things. I'm fragile. Adrien's lips softened. I know. I might cry. You can. I don't want to. I'll still be here. And that was when the first tear slid down my cheek. I groaned dramatically. Ugh, fantastic. Now I'm leaking. Adrien chuckled softly, and somehow that laugh stitched something inside me that Ren had torn open years ago. I leaned my forehead against Adrien's shoulder, just a little. Just enough to breathe. For the first time since I was 15, I felt safe. After I finished leaking emotions all over Adrien's very expensive coat, he tilted my chin up with quiet tenderness. Charlie, he said gently, look at me. His eyes were steady, warm, full of something terrifying. Hope, longing, love. Bad combination for my emotional stability. He exhaled slowly. May I love you the way you deserve? Time stopped. My brain blue-screened. Somewhere a violin probably started playing, and I, professional sarcasm user, certified emotional disaster, felt my guard crumble. I swallowed. Yes, I whispered, but don't expect me to be soft. I'm aggressively damaged. Adrien laughed, the soft, warm kind of laugh that makes your stomach flip in protest. Then I'll love you gently. My heart attempted to escape my chest through spontaneous combustion. I shoved him lightly. Stop. My soul is weak. He only smiled, leaning forward until his forehead rested against mine. Charlie, you don't have to pretend anymore. Not with me. My throat tightened again, but this time the tears didn't feel like weakness. They felt like release. His hand slid to my jaw, thumb brushing lightly. "Whenever you're ready," he whispered, "we'll bond. And when we do, it will be your choice. Not a treaty's, not a kingdom's, not a prince's. Mine," I whispered. "Yours," he confirmed. I nodded, leaning into his touch. For the first time, the future didn't terrify me. It felt possible. Of course, the universe hates peace. The very next morning, while Adrien and I were sharing breakfast, he, elegant, composed, me, shoving pastries in my mouth like a starving raccoon, a servant rushed in. "A letter, Your Highness," she said breathlessly. "From Prince Ren." Adrien stiffened. My appetite spontaneously died. "Give it here," I said, accepting the letter like it was contaminated. The seal was Ren's, pretentious and overdramatic, naturally. I opened it. The handwriting alone radiated narcissism. "Charlie, I will forgive you if you come back. There is still a place for you here, at my side. Return before you make a bigger fool of yourself. Ren." I stared at the words. "Forgive me? Forgive me." Adrien growled softly beside me, like an actual growl. Alpha instincts ready to commit crimes. I didn't give him the chance. I stood, walked to the fireplace, and without hesitation, I dropped the letter in. The flames devoured it instantly. Adrien blinked. "Charlie?" I exhaled slowly, then said the words that had been trapped in my chest for years. "I'm done begging for scraps." The fire crackled, sealing my past away. "I'm choosing someone who never made me kneel." Adrien froze. His eyes softened with something raw and reverent. Then he stepped closer than ever before, and wrapped his arms around me, pulling me gently against him. His voice trembled as he whispered into my hair, "Welcome home, Charlie." I closed my eyes. Home. A place I hadn't felt in so long. He pulled back just enough to cup my face, thumb brushing my cheek like I was made of gold. "I will never betray you," Adrien said softly, "because you are my God, the only worship I'll ever need." My breath hitched. Adrien leaned his forehead against mine, voice low, tender, and unshakable. "This is just the beginning." I smiled, small, real, a little broken, but healing. "The real beginning," I corrected. Adrien's lips brushed my temple in a feather-light kiss, and for the first time in my life, I believed in beginnings.